Blake Lively's long-delayed trial has finally happened, and it just confirmed every disturbing rumor we hoped wasn't true. What unfolded inside that courtroom wasn't just dramatic, it was explosive, career-shattering, and borderline grotesque. And now that the truth is out, there's no PR stunt in the world that can save her from this collapse. The Blake Lively trial was never supposed to see the light of day. It started quietly, behind tightly sealed legal doors, as a private arbitration between her team and Taylor Swift's legal counsel. Both parties had initially agreed to resolve their differences without the public ever knowing what really went on. But things changed dramatically when Blake's camp dropped a chilling threat, leaking so-called private evidence that allegedly involved Taylor's close circle, including texts, contracts, and confidential messages that triggered a full legal storm. Taylor Swift's team immediately pulled out of the confidentiality clause, filing a formal objection and demanding a full public trial. According to a leaked federal court document filed in January, 2020, Taylor's side refused any attempt at private mediation. They made it very clear if Blake was going to play dirty, then the entire world should watch her fall. So what exactly flipped the switch? Taylor's legal team reportedly said, "Let the world see what she's hiding." That tone sentence changed the entire tone of the case the court was now dealing with, a public trial soaked in betrayal, manipulation, and threats. But the twist that shook everyone, it was Blake herself, who requested the trial remain private. Is the same person threatening to expose Taylor behind the scenes was Theon begging the judge to keep everything locked away from public view. Her lawyers argued it was to protect reputations, but insiders say Blake feared her own skeletons might come crawling out. The court sided with Taylor, setting the stage for a public trial scheduled for 2026 against Blake's wishes. If Blake had nothing to hide, then why was she the one begging for silence when the court finally ordered Blake to bring forward her so-called explosive evidence? Things only got worse. Her team had hyped up their collection for months, claiming top-possessed bombshell texts, damning voice notes, and legal NDAs that would supposedly prove Taylor Swift manipulated the entire Justin Baldwin harassment situation. But once the clock struck the deadline, Blake's lawyers delivered a package that raised more eyebrows than it answered. What showed up in the evidence bin was a chaotic mess. Halford redacted PDFs, screenshots with missing timestamps, and a single audio file of a voice memo supposedly recorded by Taylor. The problem, the audio had AI fingerprints all over it. The courtroom was stunned, according to a leak from a court clerk referred to as Ms. Sandoval. Not a single item was authentic, it looked like. A prank submission. One digital expert hired by the court testified that 4 out of 6 files were non-credible, meaning they were either manipulated, lacked verifiable metadata, or showed signs of tampering. Even the judge couldn't stay silent. He publicly rebuked Blake's legal team during the hearing, calling their submission a reckless violation of legal procedure and public trust. At that point, everyone in the courtroom realized Blake didn't have proof. She had a cover-up. What happened to all that proof? Blake swore she had. Blake's courtroom disaster quickly made headlines. Legal commentary site Law 360RX published a scathing piece titled "Lively's Legal Bombshell Just Blew Up in Her Face." The article picked apart her evidence line by line, pointing out that the timestamps didn't align with known events, the screenshots lacked verifiable senders, and the voicemail included digital glitch artifacts linked to AI-generated audio. It was clear, instead of blowing the light off Taylor Swift's alleged manipulation, Blake had managed to expose herself as someone willing to risk it all on forged files. Her credibility, once shaky, was now completely shattered. How do you recover from a courtroom meltdown? The damage from this evidence debacle wasn't just legal, it was personal. With her attempt to attack Taylor falling flat, Blake knew faced backlash from both the legal world and the media. News outlets began to question her motives. Was the evidence ever real? Or was this entire legal stunt a way to shift public sympathy, control the narrative, and regain career momentum? After the Baldoni scandal, behind the scenes, former friends reportedly began to pull away. One unnamed Hollywood agent told Star Trial Weekly, "If this is how she plays the game, no one's going to want to work with her again." And just like that, the trial turned into something bigger than legal fallout. It became a full-blown reputation crisis. Can a celebrity really come back from a trial that exposed more lies than truths? The story was supposed to be about justice, about accountability, but instead, the headlines were now reading like a failed PR campaign exposed under oath. Taylor Swift, who initially wanted to avoid the public eye, now looked like the only person willing to face the truth. While Blake Lively appeared to be scrambling for control, what began as a war of narratives had now become a war of receipts, and Blake didn't bring enough to win. How do you defend yourself when your own evidence betrays you? The courtroom shifted the moment Ryan Reynolds entered. Everyone knew he had been avoiding involvement from the start. For months he had remained silent, walking that fine line between loyalty to his wife and the undeniable facts unraveling in court. But when the subpoena hit and Ryan took the stand as a character witness, the tension became unbearable. What people feared the most wasn't just that Ryan would talk, it was what side he'd choose. Blake's entire defense leaned on the idea that Ryan would vouch for her integrity, for her version of the story, for her innocence in the chaos. But what came next left the room speechless. When asked whether he'd prior knowledge of Blake's allegations against Taylor, Ryan's response was a turning point. He looked directly at the legal bench and said, "Taylor warned us this would happen years ago. I didn't believe her." The tone sentence was like a bullet through the foundation of Blake's entire case. Gasps rippled across the courtroom. This wasn't just any statement, it was an open confession that Ryan had been warned, dismissed it, and was now acknowledging that Taylor had been right all along. With that one sentence, Blake lost hers strongest lifeline. What kind of husband says that under oath? But the real shock came when Ryan revealed a detail nobody saw coming. Blake had kept a private burner phone, not just any backup phone, but one specifically used to track public figures. As Ryan worded it, he claimed it was active in 2020 during the peak of the balloon harassment narrative. The implication was sinister, tracking public figures that moved Blake's alleged behavior from aggressive PR tactics into something far darker. Surveillance level obsession. Ryan admitted he had stumbled across texts on his own phone that were connected to the burner messages about Taylor, messages about her whereabouts. Her legal team even alleged attempts to manipulate upcoming coverage. So the evidence Blake swore she had was she manufacturing it. Behind the scenes, the burner phone was long gone, wiped, discarded, but in a move one expected, Apple's compliance team stepped in. A subpoena demanded all linked iCloud backups from any devices registered to Blake's business accounts. And that's when the court introduced Exhibit C4112, a letter from Apple's legal department confirming that cloud backups had been accessed multiple times from different IPs, one of which was traced to the exact hotel Blake was staying in during her shoot in Prague. The timestamps matched days when Balden's legal situation heated up, which made the data timing impossible to ignore. These weren't coincidences, these were patterns. Show many burner moves had Blake made behind the scenes. Then came the part nobody wanted to believe, a sealed letter from Brian Freeredman's affidavit, submitted quietly early in the case, was unsealed and read aloud in court. It accused Blake of threatening to leak deeply private conversations between Taylor and her mother, Andrea Swift. According to the affidavit, those conversations were recorded during a time when Andrea was battling health issues and Taylor was struggling with emotional burnout. The purpose of the threat to pressure Taylor into settling the case quietly without dragging Blake's name through the mud. It wasn't about justice. It was about blackmail, about control. And now it was official on court record. Blake didn't just go after Taylor's career, she went after her family. A licensed court psychologist, appointed as an independent observer, was brought in to evaluate the emotional impact of these tactics. On the stand, she described Blake's alleged moves as psychological warfare, explaining that assessing a parent's private trauma, a leverage crossed all ethical boundaries. Taylor had never spoken publicly about those particular conversations with her mom, and now they were almost weaponized. In a legal war she didn't start when Blake's text was read aloud. If she doesn't stop, I'll bring her mother into this. Watch me. There was no recovery from that. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Why go this far just to win? As the judge paused the hearing, all eyes turned to Taylor for the first time. In the entire trial, she physically walked out, no statement, no gesture, just stood up and left witnesses say her hands were shaking. She couldn't even face the room. This wasn't just legal drama anymore. This was a betrayal so deep it rewrote the entire narrative. And in that moment, everything the world feared about this case was no longer rumor or speculation. It was real. And it was worse than expected. How do you defend someone who broke every line just to silence another woman? The courtroom tension reached a new level. Long digital pattern of Blake allegedly tracking Taylor Swift's movements, legal updates, press interactions, and even her emotional state messages from as far back as mid-2020 showed Blake discussing Taylor's rumored breakdowns and mocking them. In casual tone, often using emojis and private nicknames to belittle her, one message reportedly read, "She's spiraling, again we'll use it, press will eat it up," but the most damning blow didn't come from Taylor, it came from Gigi Hadid herself. One response stood out in the chat like a spotlight at a crime scene. After Blake joked about Taylor canceling a studio session during her anxiety episode, Gigi replied bluntly, "Blake, this is getting sick, she trusted you." That single sentence froze the courtroom. There were no questions about interpretation, no PR filter, just a direct rebuke from someone who had once been one of Blake's closest allies, according to court documents Gigi Philodan official statement days. Later, withdrawing any public or private support for Blake's actions and aligning herself with Taylor Swift's legal position. How often do friends become whistleblowers in the middle of a celebrity trial? But it didn't stop with Gigi, the fallout rippled across the entire so-called squad. In a move coordinated through legal counsel, Selena Gomez's lawyer submitted a formal letter to the court titled "Reclaiming Distance." The statement wasn't flashy, but its message was sharp: celebrities must be held accountable. Off camera, the letter confirmed that Selena had